Well, for more from the G7, let's join Euronews political editor Darren McCaffrey, who's in Biarritz. Darren, we've had this surprise visit from Iran's foreign minister. What's been the fallout from that? It certainly seems to have wrong-footed Washington.
I think it has and hasn't. President Macron is insistent that he brought this issue up with Donald Trump at a lunch on Saturday, that the US president was very aware that the Iranian foreign minister would be arriving here. It was a 3-hour visit, a 30-minute meeting with the French president. He did not meet with any US officials. And I think, Alistair, there is no sign of any great breakthrough, but where there is a little bit of hope is that Emmanuel Macron is insistent that he wants to get talks back up and running again, a sign that diplomacy may well be back on the table, and that at least on paper Donald Trump agreed to that. We heard from some of his officials suggesting that Donald Trump is always willing to make a deal, even with Iran, but tensions remain high, and as you say, it's far from clear if any substantial progress was actually made.
And we've had several world leaders turn up, wanting to promote a message about fighting inequality, which is supposed to be the central theme of this summit. How have they been received by the G7 leaders?
Yeah, as Evelyn was suggesting there, this is not just a G7. There are lots of other leaders from across the world. The main focus today, as you say, is in part on inequality, actually looking at gender inequality across the world. There have been calls for many of the G7 countries to remove laws that remain on the statute books that are discriminatory against women, but also a focus on climate change, it should be said, Alistair, as well. Given, of course, what is happening in Brazil and the row that we saw over the last couple of days with the EU suggesting, Donald Tusk among others, that essentially that big trade deal with much of Latin America would not go ahead if President Bolsonaro in Brazil did not act on these wildfires consuming many parts of the Amazon rainforest. Now, there are suggestions that there may well be a breakthrough on that today, that essentially assistance, particularly from the EU, may be given to Brazil to try and tackle those wildfires. We know Britain as well is going to provide £10 million sterling in addition to try and help. But, that issue of climate change is still going to remain very large on the table, not least of all because there are some people, notably Donald Trump, who are pretty sceptical about it all. So that will be the main issue. And then later on, we've got those press conferences. We'll get a chance to try and probe what's actually been agreed here, because ultimately there is no communique, no standards by which to judge this meeting. And as always with these situations, particularly again with President Trump's press conferences, they can tend to be quite lively affairs.
Darren McCaffrey in Biarritz, thanks very much. Well, away from the